So as you all know, the Illinois primaries took place, and there were a couple of primary races to look out for. Of course, the gubernatorial race was one. There were a couple of other races that were really important, one featuring Anthony Clark, a Justice Democrat, and another featuring Dan Lipinski, who is basically a Republican. I don't honestly know why he chooses to remain a Democrat. There was a lot of controversy when Nancy Pelosi decided to endorse him, but this is an individual who is against gay rights, he's against abortion, he's socially and economically conservative, yet he remains a Democrat. So how did he do against his progressive primary opponent, Marie Newman? Well, unfortunately, he edged out and ended up winning. Now, there is a chance that the results could change because at the time I'm reporting on this, not all precincts have finished their count. I'm crossing my fingers, but at this point, the New York Times is calling it for Dan Lipinski, even if it's very, very close. So we have a conservative Democrat bringing down the entire party, but hey, at least Nancy Pelosi gets what she wants as, the leader of the Democratic Party in the House, right? Because it's up to her to whip up votes for legislation and for her party. Oh wait, he votes against her. Now, coming to another race that I was watching was with a progressive, actually a Justice Democrat, Anthony Clark, and unfortunately he lost, quite a bit. It was a really large margin, unfortunately, that he lost to. Another really interesting race was the gubernatorial race, and it turns out that the Democratic Party just got their own version of Donald Trump because a billionaire named J.B. Pritzker won that primary, and at this point, I don't even know what to say about the state of American politics. So according to Reed Wilson of The Hill, billionaire investor and philanthropist J.B. Pritzker is the Democratic nominee to be the next governor of Illinois, after outspending his opponents by tens of millions of dollars. Pritzker spent a jaw-dropping $63 million on his bid for the Democratic nomination, including more than $33 million on television advertising, far more than Biss or Kennedy. Observers said Pritzker's money made the difference. So pretty much all you need to know about Pritzker is that he's a billionaire. Do we need any more billionaires in politics? It's bad enough that they're buying politicians, but now they're just choosing to cut out the middleman and run themselves. And now, part of me, I hope I'm wrong, thinks that this is going to be the Democratic Party's Trump. They are going to try to push him because they think, Americans opted for a billionaire, so why don't we put up our own billionaire? And we just so happen to have the governor of Illinois, who's also a billionaire. Maybe voters will go for him as well. And look, if you want to learn more about him, you can learn about half of what you need to know by watching the following ad.
Illinois is coming together with a common purpose, beating Bruce Rauner. It's time to create jobs here. It's time to invest in our roads and our bridges. It's time for us to invest in quality education for every child. It's time to bring universal health care to Illinois. This is a battle for our values. So I ask you, are you ready for the fight?
So, I don't know if anyone else noticed this, but why was Dick Durbin standing there awkwardly as he was speaking? So look, if you want to know what type of a Democrat Pritzker is, well, you can kind of get a hint by looking at this photo because that's actually Bill Clinton. He's a Clinton Democrat, and I refer to him as an establishment Democrat. But he is somewhat different than other establishment Democrats because he does seem to be at least a little bit more politically astute than other Democrats. So he does still pivot to platitudes, but only about 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time, he actually doesn't just talk about values and platitudes, but he actually does state policy positions, albeit vague policy positions, but policy positions nonetheless. Now in that video, he talked about ideas that he has, and it's a little bit misleading. So he said that he's in favor of universal healthcare for Illinois. Now, if you think that that means he's in favor of single payer, he's lying to you and gaslighting you, because really he's in favor of universal affordable healthcare, because when you visit his website, that's what he is championing. He's making sure that every single citizen in Illinois is able to have access to affordable healthcare. Unfortunately for you, JB, that's not universal healthcare. I know as a billionaire, you think that that constitutes healthcare that's universal, but it doesn't. If someone can still die or go bankrupt if they can't afford health insurance, even if it's $1, that's not universal healthcare. And I'll be honest, overall, he's not awful. I think he's a mixed bag, because even if he does support legalizing marijuana, he's still not a progressive, but he might be a little bit better than other establishment Democrats. He's certainly better than Dan Lipinski, but I mean, he's against Medicare for all, even if he refers to his plan as universal healthcare. It's not. He also doesn't mention free college or student debt cancellation. He makes no mention of net neutrality on his website. However, even if he might be slightly better than regular establishment Democrats, he's still a billionaire. A billionaire is fundamentally incapable of representing average citizens because they have no idea what us peasants are dealing with. You're a billionaire. You fly in private jets. You have a bunch of rich friends. You're in a bubble. There's absolutely no way you even have any clue what normal Americans are going through. So he might not be as bad as, the rest of the party, but he's no gem, and he's a billionaire. And as David Sirota pointed out on Twitter, this billionaire will be facing off against the Republican private equity firm Mogul come November. So in the end, I think that the results in Illinois were pretty disappointing. We've got Dan Lipinski, even if it was just by a razor-thin margin. He ran as a Democrat when he is more conservative than some Republicans. Literally, like Rand Paul. He's more conservative than Rand Paul. And then you guys voted in a billionaire who may be your next governor, and if he loses, then you get a private equity firm Mogul. Money in politics rules everything, and because this privileged prick was able to pretty much outraise his opponents, that's why he was able to win. Again, I want to read you the quote. Observers said Pritzker's money made the difference. 9 times out of 10, that is the case. Literally, studies show that 9 times out of 10, the candidate with more money wins. It's not a guarantee, but certainly it increases the likelihood of electoral victory. That's why we need to get money out of politics, because once we finally do that, we'll have politicians that aren't corrupt anymore, and we'll have a different country as a result.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.